don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Imagine this as an emotional, inspirational story created for reflection and entertainment. It is not a claim that a real soulmate is trying to contact you or that these events are happening in real life. The story begins on an evening that feels almost identical to every other evening, yet something in the air seems unusually still. The world outside your window continues its familiar rhythm as cars pass in the distance, birds settle into the trees, and the last rays of sunlight slowly disappear beyond the horizon. You reach for your phone without thinking, expecting another ordinary notification, but instead you find yourself imagining what it would feel like if someone who had carried unspoken thoughts for a very long time suddenly decided they could no longer remain silent. In this imagined story, your soulmate has reached exactly that moment. After weeks, months, or perhaps even years of quietly reflecting on life's unexpected turns, they realize that something important has changed, not because of destiny or a supernatural event, but because a simple experience has completely transformed the way they see relationships, time, and the value of honest communication. Earlier that day, they attended the retirement celebration of an elderly teacher who had spent decades encouraging students to believe in themselves. During the celebration, the teacher smiled warmly and shared one final lesson with everyone in the room. He said, "The greatest regret people carry is rarely the mistakes they made. More often, it is the conversations they never had and the appreciation they never expressed." Those words settled deeply into your imagined soulmate's heart. They returned home thinking about every opportunity they had postponed because they believed there would always be another tomorrow. They remembered messages they never sent, people they meant to thank, friendships that quietly drifted apart through busyness rather than conflict, and moments when fear disguised itself as patience. Sitting alone beside a softly lit window, they realized that waiting for perfect timing had slowly become a habit, and that habit had stolen countless opportunities to express gratitude, encouragement, and honesty. They quietly whispered to themselves, "If I truly value someone, why should tomorrow always be responsible for today's words?" That single question became the turning point of this imagined story. Meanwhile, you continue reading, unaware that the same reflection is beginning inside your own thoughts. The story gently invites you to remember the people whose kindness quietly shaped your journey. Perhaps there was someone who believed in your abilities before you recognized them yourself, someone who patiently listened when life felt overwhelming, or someone who stood beside you during difficult seasons without expecting recognition. Often, the most meaningful people in our lives never realize how much they influenced us because appreciation remained trapped inside our hearts instead of becoming spoken words. As your imagined soulmate continues reflecting, they begin writing in a small notebook. Instead of recording future plans, they list every lesson they have learned from ordinary moments. One page simply says, "Speak gratitude while people can still hear it." Another reads, "Do not confuse waiting with wisdom." A third reminds them, "Kindness becomes meaningful only when it is practiced." They realize these are not dramatic discoveries, yet together they hold remarkable power. Returning to your own journey through the story, you notice how easily ordinary days can become extraordinary simply by changing the way we respond to them. A thoughtful message sent without being asked. A patient conversation after a misunderstanding. A sincere apology offered without excuses. A quiet expression of appreciation before another opportunity slips away. These actions appear small, yet they often become the memories people carry for years. The story then introduces an elderly clockmaker who spent his life repairing broken watches in a tiny shop at the end of a narrow street. One afternoon a curious child asked why so many clocks covered the walls when everyone now carried digital devices. The old craftsman smiled and replied, "Every clock reminds me that time itself cannot be repaired, but the way we use the time we still have can always change." Those simple words stayed with everyone who visited the shop because they transformed the ordinary ticking of a clock into a quiet invitation to live more intentionally. Your imagined soulmate hears a similar story that same evening and suddenly understands what the something big really is. It is not a hidden secret waiting to surprise someone else. It is a change taking place within themselves. They no longer want fear to decide which conversations happen. They no longer want uncertainty to postpone kindness. They decide that beginning tomorrow they will thank people more often, encourage others more freely, and choose honesty even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. As you continue reading, your eyes drift toward a nearby clock where 11:11 appears on the display. Earlier in the day you happened to notice 222 printed at the bottom of a receipt, and later you smiled after seeing 444 on the number above an old doorway. Many people enjoy treating repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause, breathe, and reflect. Whether viewed as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts for mindfulness, this story encourages using them to ask thoughtful questions instead of expecting predictions. Have I appreciated someone today? Have I listened more carefully than I spoke? Have I shown patience where frustration would have been easier? Have I become the kind of person whose presence leaves others feeling encouraged? Those quiet moments become opportunities for reflection rather than certainty about the future. The imagined soulmate decides that before the next sunrise they will begin acting on everything they have learned. They write 3 letters. The first thanks a lifelong friend for never giving up on them. The second apologizes for allowing pride to create unnecessary distance in an important relationship. The third contains only one sentence: "Life reminded me today that tomorrow is never promised exactly as we imagine it, so I wanted you to know that your kindness has mattered more than you realize." They fold the letters carefully, feeling lighter with every page. For the first time in years, they realize that peace does not come from controlling how every conversation ends. Peace comes from having the courage to begin the conversation at all. Just as they prepare to place the letters into envelopes, they notice one final blank page resting beneath them. Across the top, in elegant handwriting, are 6 intriguing words that seem to begin an entirely new chapter. There is one truth you still deserve to hear: don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Imagine this as an emotional, inspirational story created for reflection and entertainment. It is not a claim that a real soulmate is trying to contact you or that these events are happening in real life. The blank page rests on the table as though it has been waiting for this exact moment. Slowly, your imagined soulmate picks it up and notices that only one sentence has been written across the top: "The hardest conversations are often the ones that have the greatest power to heal." They read those words several times, feeling every memory they have avoided quietly return to the surface. It is not a dramatic secret or an unbelievable revelation that has changed everything. Instead, it is the simple but profound realization that life has been moving forward while important words remain trapped inside their heart. Earlier that afternoon, they visited an old neighborhood where they had not walked for many years. Familiar streets looked smaller than they remembered, trees had grown taller, and buildings carried the gentle marks of time. As they passed a quiet park, they noticed an elderly couple sitting together on a wooden bench. Neither of them spoke very much. They simply smiled at one another, shared a cup of tea, and watched children play beneath the evening sky. There was no grand display of affection, yet there was unmistakable peace between them. In that quiet moment, your imagined soulmate understood something they had overlooked for years. Lasting love is rarely built through dramatic gestures alone. It grows through ordinary days filled with patience, trust, forgiveness, dependable actions, and conversations that continue even when life becomes difficult. They realized they had spent too much time believing that perfect timing was necessary, when in reality sincerity was always enough. Returning home, they opened a small wooden box filled with old photographs, handwritten birthday cards, postcards from distant holidays, and letters they had never found the courage to send. One envelope caught their attention because it had remained sealed for years. Written across the front were the words, "For the day I stop being afraid." With a deep breath, they opened it and discovered a message they had once written to remind themselves never to let fear become louder than gratitude. Reading those forgotten words felt like hearing advice from an older, wiser version of themselves. They quietly laughed, wondering how easily people can forget the lessons they once believed with complete certainty. The story invites you to pause and think about your own life. How many encouraging words have remained unspoken because you assumed someone already knew how much they mattered? How many apologies have waited for a better opportunity that never seemed to arrive? How many moments of appreciation quietly disappeared because everyday responsibilities always appeared more urgent? None of these questions ask you to dwell on regret. Instead, they gently encourage reflection. Every new day offers another chance to strengthen relationships through honesty, compassion, and thoughtful action. As your imagined soulmate continues reading the mysterious page, another story appears. It tells of a lighthouse keeper who spent decades tending a lonely light overlooking a rugged coastline. Storm after storm arrived, yet every evening he climbed the winding staircase to ensure the beacon continued shining. One visitor eventually asked why he remained so dedicated when ships rarely passed close enough to wave in return. The lighthouse keeper smiled and answered, "The purpose of light is not applause. It is guidance." Those words settled deeply into the story. Genuine kindness works the same way. It is valuable whether or not recognition ever arrives. Encouragement matters even if nobody remembers who first offered it. Patience changes relationships even when it goes unnoticed. Dependability quietly builds trust one ordinary day after another. Somewhere else in this imagined story, your soulmate decides they no longer want their life to be remembered for opportunities postponed. They begin writing a list called "Before Tomorrow." The first line says, "Thank someone who helped shape my life." The second reads, "Forgive without expecting perfection." The third reminds them, "Tell people they matter while they are here to hear it." They recognize that none of these actions require extraordinary courage. They simply require choosing today instead of endlessly waiting for tomorrow. As the evening grows quieter, they glance toward a nearby digital clock displaying 11:11. Earlier they noticed 222 on a cafe receipt and 444 on a street sign during their walk home. Many people enjoy treating repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause, breathe, and reflect. Whether viewed as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts for mindfulness, they decide to let each appearance become a gentle question rather than a prediction. Have I lived today in a way that reflects kindness? Have I listened with patience? Have I expressed appreciation before another ordinary day became yesterday? Those reflections inspire immediate action. They send a heartfelt message to an old friend they have not spoken to in years, thanking them for believing in them during a difficult chapter of life. They call a family member simply to ask how they are doing without rushing the conversation. They write another note that says, "The people who matter most should never have to guess that they matter." Something inside them begins to feel lighter. They realize that peace often arrives not because every problem has been solved, but because they finally stopped allowing fear to postpone meaningful conversations. Near the bottom of the mysterious page, the handwriting changes slightly, becoming larger and more deliberate. One final sentence stands alone: "What happened today did not change your destiny, it changed your priorities." Those words echo through the silence as they slowly fold the page. For the first time, they understand what the urgent message was truly about. That something big was never an unbelievable event waiting to shock someone else. It was a transformation of perspective, a quiet decision to stop delaying love, gratitude, honesty, and forgiveness. Yet just as they place the letter back into the envelope, they notice another folded sheet hidden beneath the lining. Across the front, written in elegant blue ink, are 7 unforgettable words: "One final conversation could change everything forever." Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Imagine this as an emotional, inspirational story created for reflection and entertainment. It is not a claim that a real soulmate is trying to contact you or that these events are happening in real life. The final folded page rests quietly in your imagined soulmate's hands. For several long moments, they simply stare at the elegant handwriting across the front that reads, "One final conversation could change everything forever." The words are neither threatening nor mysterious. Instead, they carry the gentle weight of a truth that many people eventually discover for themselves. That one sincere conversation can heal misunderstandings that have lasted for years, strengthen friendships that have quietly faded, or remind someone they are deeply appreciated before another ordinary day slips away. Taking a slow breath, they unfold the page and begin reading. The first sentence immediately captures their attention: "The greatest distance between two hearts is often created by words that remain unspoken." They pause, reflecting on every moment they allowed fear, pride, or uncertainty to silence what kindness was asking them to say. They remember believing there would always be another opportunity, another weekend, another holiday, another perfect time to express gratitude or apologize for a mistake. Yet life had quietly taught them that perfect timing rarely announces its arrival. More often, it is created the instant someone chooses courage over hesitation. Earlier that same day, while walking through a quiet botanical garden, they noticed an elderly man carefully watering flowers planted many years before. Curious, they asked why he continued tending blossoms that many visitors walked past without noticing. The gardener smiled warmly and replied, "I don't grow flowers because everyone will admire them. I grow them because beauty has value even when it is quietly appreciated." Those simple words stayed with them long after the conversation ended. They realized that love, encouragement, and kindness often follow the same pattern. They are worthwhile not because they always receive recognition, but because they improve the lives of others in quiet and lasting ways. Returning home, they found themselves opening an old notebook filled with lessons collected over many years. One page simply read, "Never let gratitude become an unfinished sentence." Another said, "Kindness spoken too late still has value, but kindness spoken today has the chance to change someone's tomorrow." Reading those forgotten reflections felt as though they were receiving advice from their younger self, reminding them of truths that everyday busyness had slowly buried beneath routine. The imagined story gently invites you to reflect alongside them. Think about the people whose quiet encouragement helped shape your own journey. Perhaps someone believed in you before you believed in yourself. Perhaps a friend listened without judgment during a difficult season. Perhaps a family member sacrificed comfort so you could pursue new opportunities. Often, the people who influence our lives most profoundly never realize the impact they had because appreciation remained locked inside our hearts instead of becoming spoken words. As these thoughts settle in, your imagined soulmate decides they will no longer allow silence to become the author of their story. They write a list titled, "Conversations Worth Having." The first reminds them to thank someone who quietly changed their life. The second encourages them to forgive where forgiveness is possible. The third challenges them to encourage someone who may be doubting themselves. They discover that none of these conversations require extraordinary eloquence. They simply require sincerity. While reflecting, they glance at a nearby digital clock displaying 11:11. Earlier in the afternoon they noticed 222 printed on a receipt from a small cafe, and later they smiled after passing a building marked 444. Many people enjoy treating repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause, breathe, and reflect. Whether viewed as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts for mindfulness, they allow those moments to become gentle invitations to ask themselves, "Have I made someone feel appreciated today? Have I chosen patience over frustration? Have I listened with genuine attention instead of simply waiting to speak?" Rather than searching those numbers for predictions, they use them as opportunities to become more present and intentional. Inspired by this change in perspective, they begin taking small actions before the evening ends. They send a heartfelt message to an old mentor expressing gratitude for encouragement received years earlier. They call a close friend simply to listen rather than to talk about themselves. They write a handwritten note to a family member reminding them how deeply they are loved and appreciated. None of these actions seem dramatic, yet each one leaves them with an unexpected sense of peace. They realize that healing often begins with one thoughtful decision repeated consistently over time. Near the bottom of the page, the handwriting becomes larger, as though the writer wants every reader to remember the next sentence long after the paper has been folded away. The greatest change in your life may begin with the smallest act of courage. They quietly close their eyes, understanding that the something big was never a hidden secret waiting to be revealed. It was the quiet transformation that occurred within their own heart, the decision to stop postponing gratitude, kindness, honesty, forgiveness, and encouragement. As they prepare to return the page to its envelope, they notice a tiny sealed note tucked inside the fold. Carefully lifting it into the light, they read 7 simple words written in graceful blue ink: "Tomorrow begins with the choice you make tonight." Holding that final message close, they realize that the ending of this imagined story has not yet been written. It will be shaped by the conversations they choose to have, the kindness they choose to show, and the hope they choose to share when a new day begins. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Imagine this as an emotional, inspirational story created for reflection and entertainment. It is not a claim that a real soulmate is trying to contact you or that these events are happening in real life. As the first light of morning begins to fill the room, your imagined soulmate sits quietly with every page of the letter spread across the table. They read each sentence one final time before carefully folding the papers back into the envelope, and for the first time they realize that nothing extraordinary has happened around them. The room has not changed. The world outside continues exactly as it did yesterday. Yet something inside them is completely different. They understand that the urgent feeling they experienced was never about chasing a mysterious sign or waiting for fate to intervene. It was the quiet awakening that life becomes richer when appreciation is expressed before opportunities disappear, when forgiveness is offered before resentment becomes permanent, and when kindness is chosen even on ordinary days that seem insignificant. They remember the elderly teacher whose words first stirred their heart, the clockmaker who reminded them that lost time cannot be repaired but wisely used time can still transform a life, the gardener who planted flowers simply because beauty deserved to exist, and the lighthouse keeper who continued shining his light without expecting applause. Every story carried the same lesson. Meaningful lives are built through consistent acts of compassion rather than dramatic moments remembered by everyone else. Sitting beside the window, they take out a blank notebook and begin writing a completely different kind of list. Instead of goals centered on success or recognition, they write promises they hope will shape the person they become. The first promise reads, "I will thank people while they can still hear my gratitude." The second says, "I will never allow fear to decide which conversations deserve to happen." The third reminds them, "I will choose patience before anger, understanding before judgment, and encouragement before unnecessary criticism." Reading those promises aloud, they feel a quiet peace settle within them. It is not the excitement that comes from believing every problem has vanished. It is the calm confidence that comes from knowing they can choose their response to each new day. Later that morning they walk through familiar streets with fresh eyes, noticing smiles they once ignored, neighbors they rarely greeted, and small opportunities to brighten another person's day. They help an elderly stranger carry heavy shopping bags, hold a door open for someone rushing to work, and thank a cafe employee whose kindness had become so familiar it had almost gone unnoticed. None of these actions attract attention, yet each one reminds them that love is often expressed most powerfully through simple, dependable choices. As they continue walking, they glance at a nearby digital display where 1111 briefly appears. Earlier they noticed 222 printed on a receipt and later passed an old building marked 444. Many people enjoy treating repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause, breathe, and reflect. Whether viewed as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts for mindfulness, they choose to let each appearance encourage one quiet question: have I made today's world a little kinder than it was yesterday? Instead of expecting those moments to reveal hidden messages about the future, they use them as invitations to become more present, more grateful, and more intentional with the people around them. Days slowly become weeks, and the urgency that once filled the imagined story begins transforming into steady purpose. Your imagined soulmate no longer searches for perfect circumstances before expressing appreciation. They send messages simply because someone crosses their mind. They apologize quickly when they realize they have caused hurt. They celebrate other people's achievements without comparing them to their own. They discover that genuine confidence grows not from being admired but from living according to values that remain unchanged even when nobody is watching. One quiet evening they return home and open the envelope one final time, expecting the pages to be completely blank. Instead, every sentence has faded except for a single line written in the center of the final page. The conversation was never meant to end with this letter. It was meant to continue through the way you live. They smile softly, understanding at last that the urgent message was never asking them to wait for destiny, chase impossible certainty, or search endlessly for hidden signs. It was encouraging them to become the kind of person whose everyday actions speak louder than any mysterious message ever could. Carefully placing the envelope back on the shelf, they realize the greatest chapter of the story has not been written on paper at all. It will be written through every kind word they choose to speak, every promise they faithfully keep, every moment they offer forgiveness instead of bitterness, every act of generosity performed without expecting recognition, and every opportunity they take to remind someone that they matter before another ordinary day quietly becomes a memory. The envelope may remain closed forever after this morning, but its purpose continues wherever honesty replaces hesitation, gratitude replaces silence, hope replaces fear, and compassion becomes a daily habit. That is the true ending of this imagined journey, and it is also the beginning of every meaningful story that is still waiting to be written.